So we do have one question in the box already from Tim. He's asking how to add a partner. So great idea, Tim. Let's cover some partner presentations here, and we'll show you how to make this work. So by default, when you first log into Edge, you've got a bunch of sample clients in here, and you'll notice there's quite a few regular clients that are in there. They're all sample files. Feel free to use them, copy them, overwrite them if you'd like. But there's also one partner that's going to be in there for you. Now, this is a great example that has everything filled out. So, for instance, we've got some products in there. You can see that we've got an FHA 203K in this one. In yours, you probably have 4 different loans. In this one in particular, I created on my own. However, you'll also have things like all the contact information and images will be in there. And then you'll have at the end of the presentation, you can select either the open house flyer or the seller buy down, and they're already completed so you can see what they look like. But we'll do one from scratch real quick here. So from the home screen, anytime you want to build a new partner report, now these are going to be open house flyers or seller buy down strategies, you're going to click on new partner at the top. Now if you've got a list of partners already going, you've already done a few reports for them, and you wanted to actually add an additional analysis for a particular partner, the way to do that is click on the view all button here, and then find the partner that you want to do another analysis for. And you notice there's a little arrow next to your partner's name. That'll drop down all the presentations for this particular one. And you can see that I've got a seller buy down and open house flyers for this one. But if I wanted to add an additional analysis, say to cover another property, because that's going to be your most common use of creating additional analyses for a partner, all you would do is make sure that you've got your partner selected and hit Add Analysis. This is going to add another analysis for this same realtor partner, and it's going to appear in the list when you're done. So let's add a new analysis for Amy Realtor. And you can see that by doing that, it actually brought in all the contact information for this realtor. It did bring over her images and such as well, so I don't have to redo all the work on that one. But most importantly, you want to make sure that you issue a friendly name for each one of these reports. This is going to help you to identify them when you go into that View All section. So for this one, I'm going to call this 456 Summer Street. And I would urge you that anytime you're doing partner presentations, when you're going to do multiples for the same partner, the friendly name field, you should probably put the property address in there because that's going to help you identify it a lot faster. And then we'll pop in our street address. So that was 456 Sum Street. And we'll go back to my hometown of Glendale. All right. So now that I've got the basic property information in here, I'm going to continue along, and it's time to enter some property features. Now, depending on which presentation you're going to do, whether it's an open house flyer or a seller buy down strategy, there's certain fields that you won't have to complete. For instance, if I'm doing a seller buy down strategy, I really don't need to complete this area at all because this is really geared more towards open house flyers. Now, that said, anytime you're going to do a seller buy down, you probably want to also do an open house flyer for the same property. So it's a good idea to just complete the entire wizard. That way, when you get to the end, you can choose which one you want to do, or you can do them both. Now, when you choose which one you want to do, each one of those choices has a specific link to it. So if you were to generate an open house presentation for this particular partner, it would give you one link. And then if you went back and selected the seller buy down, it would give you a different one. So let's go ahead and complete this. Let's say this is a $250,000 house. Got about, well, let's go 1,500 square feet. And we'll make it a 2 and 2. Now, listing link, the reason you would put this in is just for your reference. This is not going to end up on your presentation. So it's just so if you come back into your Edge presentation and you want to get back to the actual MLS listing link, or say, for instance, you pulled this off Realtor.com or something like that, you can record the link here so you can easily get back to it. Now, more features allows you to assign the additional property features that are going to show up on your open house presentation. So when you click on this, you have lots of checkbox options here, and then you have 2 custom features. So if you want to be able to use the custom feature, basically you're just going to write in whatever the feature is and then make sure to check the box next to it, and it'll show up on your presentations. Now, before you ask, we do have a lot of requests to add additional custom feature elements in here. We do have a ticket open for that, so we're going to try and get that in there for you soon. But for now, there are only 2 custom features, and then you have all the defaults in here. So the idea behind this is you want to pull up the listing link and you want to look at it so you can identify what the features are. So for instance, this would be a single family home. Let's say it's got central air and heat. It's energy efficient. And let's say I've got a single car garage. And it's a 1-story house. And we'll say I've got a swimming pool as well. Now, custom features, I'm going to use both of them. I'm going to say that this one is FHA eligible. And let's say something like a beautiful mountain view. Now once you hit OK, those are automatically stored, so you don't have to do anything with those. And all you have to do is proceed to the next question on the wizard. Now for this part, you're going to need property images. Now the easiest way to get a property image is literally to find it on the listing, right-click on it, and save it to your desktop. So let me show you how to do that real quick. Let's go to realtor.com. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to grab this one here. Now when you first click on the link, you'll notice that there is an image here, and you can capture this image. It's perfectly fine, and it's actually the right size for Edge. So all you'd have to do is hit Save Image As. And I'm going to call this one House Front. Now you can also find additional images. You can see there's 10 images in this particular listing. So if you want to go to larger photos, then it'll let you scroll through them. And that was actually the back of the house. This one's the front, so I'll probably go and rename that in a moment. But I like this image as well, so I'm going to save that one. And I'll call this one Front for Real. There we go. And save it. So now I've got two images in there. I've got basically a front and a rear view of this house. So once I've got my images, I can now go into Edge, hit the Browse button. And let's find the one I did. There's Front for Real. And when you pop it in there, it automatically fills it out for you. You shouldn't need to resize these images, but if you have a very funny sized image, say for instance the realtor gives you like a 9,000 by 9,000 image, that's going to be too big for Edge, and it may not show up on your presentation. So if you ever run through one of these and you notice your property image isn't showing up, there's likely something wrong with it where it couldn't be saved to the database. If that's the case, just shoot the image over to us at support. We'll be happy to resize it for you, scale it correctly. We can even upload it into your presentation for you. Now you can upload up to 3 images, and the reason we give you the option to do up to 3 images is that maybe you want to use one for the seller buy down and one for the open house flyer, or maybe you want to change it periodically. All you have to do to change it is come in and reselect which image you're going to use for the particular presentation. And I'll show you that when we get towards the end here, because that's going to be over on this button. Now let's upload a second image. Let's find that other one. This is actually the rear of the house. So I'm actually going to change this one to be rear image. Now I will tell you, don't spend too much time on the picture name or descriptions. Tell you the honest truth, the description is not going to show up anywhere in your presentation. I see a lot of people putting a bunch of work into this description area, and then I get the email from them going, hey, how come this isn't showing up on my open house? It's just a description of the image. It's just so you remember what it is. To tell you the truth, I probably would usually skip this particular field. Now the picture name field, it is important to just leave that there. You don't really need to edit it, but make sure it's got some kind of a name. And the reason I say that, when we get to the presentation screen, you'll see that when we select images, if we have an image without a name, it doesn't look like it's selectable. So just make sure there's always a name there. All right, so now it's time to get together some products. So we'll add a couple of standard products. This is going to be an open house, so I want to show a couple of different options for down payments maybe, and a couple of different program options. So let's say that this one is going to be FHA 10% down. And I'm also going to compare this against a conventional 10%, and perhaps I'll do the 20% as well. Now remember, you can do up to 4 products on any open house presentation, so feel free to use those. The one thing I would caution you against is make sure your names for the products are 12 characters or less. Anytime you go over that, you risk part of the presentation actually pushing out of the print view because your product names are too long. So if you ever actually have a problem where you prepare a print preview and you find that one of your products looks like it's kind of pushed out of view or kind of hidden, the reason is your product names are a bit too long. So you'd want to come back in here, use abbreviation as much as you can to keep it nice and short. You could even just say option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4, and be perfectly fine. All right, so if you do have templates, it makes it a lot easier because you can actually apply a template to come in here. But I'm going to do all of this from scratch, and at the end of this, I'm going to show you how to save the templates. So first things first, I'm going to choose, yes, it is an FHA program. And this one's going to be a 10% down. Let's say that I can get an interest rate of about 4 1/4, and it's going to be a 30-year term. Now the right and left arrows inside Edge are your save keys. So just know that anytime you jump between screens in Edge, it's going to save your data for you. Now upfront MIP, I've got to make sure and account for that, so I'll put in my 1.75, and then I'll tick the box to add that to the loan amount because I do want it to increase the amount financed by the amount of the MI. And then let's apply a closing cost template. And let's see, there's one I have specifically just for the QA. So obviously this isn't completed. I'd need a couple more fields in here, owner's title, lender's title, all that kind of good stuff. So I'd probably want to beef up my template a little bit. Let's see if I've got a different one that has a little more in it. There we go. So the parts that I would need to modify in here are the variable parts. Things like the owner's and lender's title that can vary with the loan amount. Your loan origination fee, if you do have one in here, which I don't. Let's make sure and put one in there. That's probably going to change on a case-by-case basis. So let's say it's about $1,900 for this one, and that is an APR fee. Now you'll note that there's a couple of fields in my templates that I purposely leave blank. These are the ones that tend to vary between our different programs offered, so you want to be able to edit these on a case-by-case basis. The other things that usually I leave blank are the hazard insurance reserves and tax reserves. So let's put those in there. Now both of these are prepaid escrows, so you can see that they actually check the box over here on the far right. That's not too much of a big deal for the open house presentation, but get in the habit of making sure you've got these selected correctly for when you do your total cost analyses, because anything that's ticked with this prepaid escrow box is not going to factor into the total cost for the loan in the short-term savings area. So let's pop in some hazard insurance reserves, and we'll get some tax reserves in there. And then we'll apply all of that to the loan. Now on the next screen, we need to make sure and input our monthly escrows. So these are not the reserves, these are what they're paying per month. And then we'll pop in the mortgage insurance, and this one is 1.25 at this level. We do want to, and this is very important for all FHA loans, make sure you check this box. This recalculates the MI every year based on the average balance over the 12-month period. Now, in order for your MI payment to be right and match your loan origination system, you have to check this box. If you do not, your mortgage insurance will be wrong, and your APR will be very high because it's going to assume that this payment stays consistent for the entire life of the loan. Whereas what's really going to happen here with FHA loans is this is going to decline every year based on the balance. So by the end of the term, it's going to be very small. It's going to be 25 bucks or something like that. Now, probably the most critical part here is your MI cutoff month. For FHA loans, high-value FHA loans, these ones have to carry it for the life of the loan. So we're going to put our 360-month cutoff here. Now, when you do that, this is the first variable that Edge considers. So it doesn't matter what your percentage rate is here for the MI cutoff. It's got to go 360 months first, then it can consider the LTV. But at that point, the loan's paid off, so don't worry about it. Just make sure you've got your cutoff month correct in here. Now, for the very low LTV FHA loans, they've got to carry it for a minimum of 11 years. So you'd put your month one, I think it's 132 there, and then you would keep your 78 up there. So what that'll tell Edge is that it has to go for 11 years first. Then, if it's at 78%, it can drop off. Now the final thing I want to do on this one is I want to save this product as a template so I don't have to do the data entry every single time. So I'm going to hit Save as Template. I'm going to call it FHA 10% down and hit OK. Now what this means is that anytime I go into a new product, I will now have this FHA right here. So I could pull this in and it would pull in all the data I just entered as a template, and then I would just modify individual items that I needed to change. All right, let's see what kind of questions we've got here. Angela's question, how do I add a second loan feature to the product? Okay, I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. We'll show an 80-10-10 for our next product slot. Shovel's question, should the monthly tax tie in with the tax reserves? Shovel, I'm going to have to I'll follow up with you on that one. I'm not quite sure what you mean. Could you clarify a little bit, and I'll see if I can help with that. And Pat's question, she'd like to see an example of a conventional refi with a HELOC subordinated and with a HELOC paid off. Okay, we'll take care of that after we finish our open house flyer. Okay, so for this one, let's make it an 80-10-10. Now, because I've done the legwork already on the first product, I can actually copy this one into this product so that I can just make minor modifications. So I'm going to use the copy button. I'm going to copy my FHA product. Now this is going to be a conventional, so I'm going to untick the FHA toggle here. And then very important, anytime you're doing an 80-10-10, remember your first lien is going to be 80%. So you need to make sure that your first lien is showing the correct loan amount. In order to do that, you put 20 in here for the down payment field. Now when you enter the second is going to be 10%, so it's going to eat up 10% of this down payment. You're going to end up with 10% down. But remember, when we're looking at the first lien, we've got to tell it that this needs to be 80%. The only way to do that is to put 20 right here or manually type in the base loan amount. All right, so for this conventional, I'm going to say that the rate is going to be a little bit higher. And then because I use the copy button, all my fees are already in there. If I needed to make minor mods, I would go in there and just modify whatever I needed to. And then my monthly escrows came over, but because I'm doing an 80-10-10, I'm not going to need any mortgage insurance, so I'm just going to zero this field out. And then the cutoffs don't matter because I don't have mortgage insurance. But now I need to add a second lien. And in order to do that, we're just going to toggle yes, this product does have a second lien. And then we need to enter the amount of our second lien. Now, I happen to know that's $25,000. If you don't remember how much it should be, all you have to do is come back to the first screen of your first lien, look at the down payment field and divide that in half. That's going to give you your 10% because that equates to 20% right there. So let's get back over to our second lien. And we'll pop in our interest rate. Let's say that we can get about a 5% interest rate on that one. And we'll make this an interest-only HELOC. It usually carries a term of 25 years, but you want to make sure that the interest-only months match your term so it stays interest-only for the life of the loan. Now, I understand pretty soon HELOCs are going to be doing away with the interest-only part. It's not done yet, but when they do, obviously you wouldn't enter the interest-only months here. You would leave it as a fully amortized loan. Now, you won't need to put a balloon month in here. Edge is going to assume, because it's interest only for the entire term of this loan, that if it's not paid off by the end of the term, it's going to call for whatever's left as a lump sum payment. So technically, it's just like a balloon in that case. Now, if there's any costs that were associated specifically with this second, you can put them in here. Or what I usually do is I add those costs in the first lien, just so it's less confusing. I just want to make sure that they all show up in the line itemization. Well, let's add one more product. So for this one, we'll just do a conventional 10% down. And I will copy the FHA loan so I don't have to redo all that data. Toggle it no. My down payment percentage is correct. I just need to modify my rate. And then I'll need to go in and modify my monthly mortgage insurance. So in this case, on a conventional, I'll probably get it a little bit less. Let's say I can get about 1.1 factor. For conventionals, we don't want it to recalculate the MI every year based on the balance. That's going to stay $206 per month for the life, well, until it hits the 78% mark, actually, not life of the loan. So I'm removing the MI cutoff month, and I did that because I want only this LTV cutoff to come into play. So once this hits 78%, that MI is going to fall off completely. All right, so I've got 3 solid products here. And let's get over to the contact area. And you can see I've filled in all the contact information for my realtor partner. If you put an email address in here, Edge will give you the option to have your partner notified when this report is viewed, just like you get notified. It'll send them an email to let them know that this particular presentation has been viewed, and it helps them get an idea of what kind of traction your presentations are having with their clients. Last part is you want to make sure and upload a headshot and a logo for your partner. Best place to get these is ask the partner for them. They're going to have their best images. But if you haven't yet contacted them, you can usually find these images over, just about anywhere. You can find them on LinkedIn. You can find them on Facebook. You can just Google their name. Usually they have a website. Realtors in particular have images all over the place. So it's usually pretty easy to find images for these people. But it's the same process as we did with the actual property images, where I would just go to the website, right-click on the image that I want to save it, and then upload it here into Edge. The last part is we're going to select what type of flyer we're going to do. So I've selected open house flyer. I'm going to check all the boxes for the individual ones that I want to show. And then let's give it a presentation title. So let's say just listed. And then pricing label. This is what you're going to put next to the price. So for instance, asking price, sales price. I'll put sales price. And then notes, these appear directly beneath the payments. So you can use these for payment notes to indicate whether you're including taxes and insurance. You can actually even use these for additional property details that you couldn't fit in over in the other section. So let's do that. Now, lastly, we need to select which image to use. Now, if you don't go through the step and you don't select an image, there's not going to be a property image on your presentation. So make sure to select one of them. And hit the right arrow. Set your quote date. If you do want your partner to be alerted when this presentation is viewed, click Send Edge View Alert to Partner here. If you want to enable the call button, that's just that green button that appears at the top and bottom of your presentations. Allows your borrower to click on it and make immediate contact with you. You can enable that as well. And of course, you want to be notified when this report is viewed, so make sure to check that box. Last step, generate the link. Now, as is, I can send this presentation out by literally just right-clicking on this one, copying the link, and pasting it into an email to my borrower. However, I would tell you that anytime you do one of these presentations, you want your advice to follow you, make sure to add an audio-video presentation, especially so that you can consistently cross-sell the realtor during this presentation. That's the only way you're going to get more referrals from that realtor, is that if you are in every step of the process, copying them in, making sure they're getting alerted when these presentations are going forward, you're building them up, you're talking about the relationship that you have with this realtor, and anytime you're talking with the borrower, because this is going to be seen by borrowers as well, you just want to make sure that throughout the entire presentation, there's a consistent appearance of both you and the realtor partner. All right, so let's see what kind of questions we got here. Julie's question, why can you not put a lump sum under contributions if you use the template? Great question, Julie. So let's go back into one of these products here. So what happens is when you use a closing cost details, when you actually itemize, it fills out all these fields based on what's inside the detail. So these are grayed out because they're being populated with this stuff in here. That means that if you want to edit that, you'd have to go back into the detail. Now, in terms of a contribution, you can definitely do it. All you have to do is add a new line item, so hit Add Fee, and then select Contribution from the list. You can do this by clicking the C on your keyboard, and it'll take you to all the C's. Now, this one in particular, we built specific logic into it that says if you set a contribution here, it has to knock down the cash to close by this amount. So let's say that there's a $2,000 lender contribution. If it's supposed to go against the APR, you would check the box here. If you don't want your contribution reducing your APR, leave the box unchecked. Then all you would do is apply to loan, and you'll notice that my contributions have now grown. Now I have $2,450 for my total contributions. Now this results in negative non-APR costs. I'd left this as a non-APR contribution. So what it did is it knocked down all the non-APR costs, and whatever was left, this negative amount, is getting pulled out of either prepaid escrows or APR costs, but it's not going to reduce the APR. That's the important part. So hopefully that helps there, Julie. Oh, so Shebel gave more clarification on what he was talking about. He was saying for the tax reserves, it would be obtained by multiplying the monthly tax by number of months to impound. So here's the problem. When we're inside our fee detail screen, we don't yet know what the monthly taxes or insurance are. So that's why we can't give you just a multiplier. I'd love to see in this closing cost detail if we could give you a line item that says hazard insurance reserves number of months. So you just enter the number of months and it would multiply it out. The problem is this wizard is left to right. So until we get to the monthly cost screen, we don't really know what these figures are going to be yet. Now that said, we're working on it. We're trying to find a way to give this to you. We can't just switch these screens because it would kill the entire workflow in the database. But we're looking to give you a way to maybe include a checkbox or alternate data entry point here that indicates how many months should be collected for reserves. So we'll see what we can do on that one. We'll try to get in there for you. Oliver's question, are you going to do a total loan or a total cost analysis? Yeah, we'll do that right after this one is done. Julie's question, will there be a feature for deferred payments on the second loan, such as CHDAP? Not yet, and the whole reason is there's so many different types of deferred interest options out there. I mean, you've got CHAFA, you've got the other ones. Some of them do require interest to be paid. Some of them are deferred interest. Some of them are payable on sale. There's a lot of different factors that do come into it. I will tell you, we're looking at it, and we're trying to find a way to do it for you. Right now, the best way would be to just enter it as an additional line item. And the way you would do that is go into your closing cost detail, and you're going to add a custom fee. And let's call this one down payment assistance. Oops. And then you're going to default it as a prepaid because you don't want this to show up in your cost line. And let's say it was a $10,000 assistance. You would just put that in, leave it as tagged for the borrower because we want this to reduce borrower costs. And this is technically going to reduce our down payment by this amount. Really, all this one is doing here in Edge is it says, take this out of my cash to close. I want this $10,000 out of the cash to close. So when you get to the final presentation, your end result will show the correct cash to close. The itemization in here is only going to show up on the total cost analysis. Remember, the open house doesn't show the itemization. It just shows the final totals. So when doing an open house presentation, this is perfectly acceptable. Just line item it here, pop it in there, and it will reduce your cash to close. All right. Angela's question. Oh, it looks like she found it. All right. She was saying, can you show where you added the product super quick? So what I did, and she already found this, but anytime you're in a new product, all you have to do is use the copy button. So right here on the first screen of the product, hit copy from, and then you can copy any of the other presentations you've already created inside the products here. Now, if you've made it a loan template like I did, you can use this drop-down box here and select one of your product templates. Now, product templates have all the detail for each screen, so the closing costs, the main loan details, all the way down to the monthly escrows. All right. Jim's question, he says, hey Jacob, I've been watching the recent daily mortgage coach training. He shows the mobile screen on his webinar. How is he doing this, and is there a way for us to do it? Also, the Harney demos seem to be a straight video on the mobile app. Again, is there a way for us to do that? Is it part of Edge, or is it something special you did there? So what we do, Jim, is we actually use a tool called Reflector, and you can purchase it. You can just go to reflectorapp.com. I'll show you what it looks like. But this is just for any iOS app. So if you want to be able to show something that's appearing on either your iPhone or iPad, you want to be able to show it on your screen on your computer. What this program does is it allows you to use the AirPlay function on your iOS device to literally send whatever is being viewed over to your computer. So once you've got it installed, it's pretty straightforward. I'll show you what it looks like real quick here. Looks like I have an update available. And let me grab my iPad and I'll show you what we're talking about here. And let me just turn it on so you guys can see it. All right, should be coming into view momentarily here. And it actually might be getting defeated by my GoToMeeting. I should have started this before GoToMeeting. But what it allows you to do is once you've got Reflector running, I'm going to turn mine off so it doesn't make a problem. All right, cool. Once you've got Reflector running, it allows you to just basically pitch whatever's on your iPad or your iPhone to the screen that you're on. So I'm not going to do it right now because I have a feeling it's going to kill my GoToMeeting. But you get the idea. If you need more information on it, just go to reflectorapp.com. And you can see it's right here. It's only $13, well worth it. Okay, so let's get back over into Edge here. Doreen's question, how do we do a video and how do we erase and start over? So I can't go through the entire video production process, but I will tell you that we have some great videos on how to do this in our help menu. So if you go to help, and once you get in here, just type video in the search item. And once you do that, you'll see that one of the top ones is how to create Edge videos. This is a step-by-step tutorial that takes you through everything, how to set up your camera, how to start, what kind of things you should be concerned about in terms of lighting in your office and distractions, disruptions, and such. But check this one out when you get the chance. That's going to give you the nuts and bolts on how to do it. Now, the second part of your question, how do you erase and start over? If you've already got a video on one of these guys, all you have to do is go back to the very last screen in Edge where you generate the link. And then you're going to hit Add Audio Video once again. That takes you to the preview. And then once you hit Record Message, if you do have a video already on here, you'll find that, and hang on a second, you'll find that, there we go, this trash can will be clickable, and you can erase the video and then just re-record. Now, that said, you can actually just record over the video as well, so no need to erase if you're just going to keep doing a couple of takes in a row to see what works for you best. But after you're done recording, if you wanted to come back into this and erase a video, you would just need to open up your Edge presentation again, go back to where you generate the link, hit Add Audio Video, and then bring up this recorder and hit the trash can button, and the video will be removed from your presentation. All right, so let's see here. Oliver's question, after creating the link, then I decided to change the price due to a price reduction. Does it create a new link or does it use the same link with a new price? Great question, Oliver. So what it does is once you have one of these guys in here, this link, it stays with the presentation. So anything you change inside the presentation, you don't need to reissue the link. That link's going to stay consistent. So if you've already sent this out to your partner or borrower, and you've made modifications, just tell them to click on the link again. It'll automatically show the updated information that you have inside Edge. Just make sure that anytime you make a change inside Edge, if you want them to be able to view that change immediately, just hit the right or left arrows so it saves your information, and it'll update within 3 to 5 seconds on the live presentation. Steve's comment, he says, my APRs in Edge are way off. What's my problem? I would tell you probably, Steve, if you're doing FHA loans, I bet you it's this this checkbox for the monthly MI. Let me show you where that's at. This guy right here, if you don't check this box, it's going to assume that this MI payment stays at this amount for the life of the loan. That's going to result in a really, really high APR. And this is specific to FHA loans. So if you're finding that your FHA loans are just way too high, come back in here and check this box. Make sure you've got your 360 months here, and it should match your LOS spot on. Now, the other thing that can affect your APR is, of course, your APR costs that are in the closing cost details. In those cases, just try and mirror your fee sheet as closely as possible, and you'll get it spot on. Ida's question, if you check the APR button on a closing cost entry, it reduces it. Otherwise, all costs will go into APR. No. Actually, what happens is I was showing you that if you do a contribution, and you check the APR box, that will reduce the APR by the amount of the contribution. That's specific just to the contribution line, Ida, so don't worry about it. You want to make the check boxes as you normally would for all the other line items. So if it is an APR cost, you check the box. If it's not an APR cost, leave the box unchecked. The contribution one, if you do decide to check the box on the contribution, it will reduce the APR by the amount of the contribution. If you don't check the box, it just won't apply this contribution to APR cost, so it won't reduce your APR. Okay. Chris's question says, I don't understand your title 80-10-10. Would you please explain that? Absolutely. So my title 80-10-10 is just meaning that I'm going to have an 80% first lien, I'm going to have a 10% second lien, and I'll have a 10% down payment. Now, you can write this any way you'd like. There's certainly better ways to write this. I used to underwrite, so this is how we always referred to it. You can certainly use other terminology. You can say 80% first with 10% second or something like that. And that might make a little bit more sense. You can even just call it a piggyback loan. You can call it a combo loan. I mean, there's a lot of different nomenclature you can use for it. All right, let's see here. William's question, where would you show investor credit in the costs, or would you net those out of the origination costs? Probably you'd want to net those out of origination costs, William, because there's no way to specify that an investor's paying for it. You could tag it as a lender paid cost, because technically it's going through you to some degree. You could even call it a broker cost, but it's going to be a little iffy. I would say your best bet is to just net it out of your APR costs, or just put it as a lender contribution. It'll make the most sense. Jim's question, is this strictly for iOS, or is there an Android version? And he's referring to the Reflector app. That is specifically for iOS only. Yeah, Android's a little difficult because it doesn't have an AirPlay functionality that allows you to just pitch your screen onto different devices. Android allows you to do screenshots that you can interact with, but it's a lot different program, and it's certainly not as fluid as the Reflector app that you saw yesterday. Shebel's question, in a TCA for a refi, I entered the current taxes and insurance. Why do I have to re-enter them again with the refinance options? You don't necessarily have to, Shebel. You can get around doing that by using the copy button to copy the current mortgage over, and then just change it to be a new mortgage. So it'll copy all the monthly escrows from your current mortgage, so you don't have to do that every time. Doreen, you have a video that you hear 2 recordings. That is not good. Send us a link to that, Doreen, and we'll look into that and find out what's going on. That's certainly not normal. Bruce's question, are these flyers printable or only to create links? So great question, Bruce. When you get to the end of your presentation, and let me answer this in two ways here. I would say the most important element is going to be the live version of the presentation, because it allows you to do things like get your notification alerts. It allows you to make changes on the fly like we discussed earlier. It also allows you to put video on it. And what this means is that that link, anytime it's shared, anytime it's passed around, anytime it's posted to a website, a blog, it means that your advice is going to be following you online, which is great. That's what you want. You want to make sure that your video and your presentation can be easily portable between different media. Now, that said, this is an open house flyer, so you can certainly print it. Now, I would tell you the best way to print it is always to preview the live report. And I'll show you what this looks like. So here's my live report for that open house flyer that we were doing. Now, the reason I tell you that the best practice here is to preview the live report and then print is because this always shows what's stored in our database. So if you've run into any kind of a cache problem in your browser, this will show you, because if you're missing something here, it didn't get saved. Now, in a case like that, you'd probably just want to log out of your browser, close the browser window, open a new one, and come back in. That's going to clear all the temporary files out for you. And then when you make your edits, you'll see that there's something missing somewhere. Now, in this case, this one looks good. I think it's ready to be sent out. So what I would do is I would actually send this link to my partner, so this guy right here, and I would have my partner print them out. And the reason I tell you that is this is a co-branded presentation. You guys are all familiar with the laws around co-branded presentations. You got to share in the cost to some degree. Now, whether that's you making an agreement per year for $20 in printing costs or something like that, or whether it means that you send this link over to your partner and have your partner print it, both of them are great ways to make sure that you guys are sharing in the production costs for this presentation. Now, if you do want to print one, just hit the print button down here. And this is going to give you a print preview of what this looks like. And you can see that everything looks good on this flyer. My product names weren't too long, so I'm not losing any data off the right here. That's where you would see it, is right here. My payment notes look good. I actually have room to enter additional notes around this if I wanted to add more color around what this property has. I could put a little bit more in there. You can see that my information and my partner's information look good. I don't have any issues with the logos or photos, and I can just print this directly. Now, a word of caution for those of you who like to use print to PDF functions, and I do too, so I'm one of those. When you want to save a PDF in Edge, you can hit the Save button here, and it will allow you to save this PDF directly. But if you want to, and I've seen this happen quite often, if you want to do a print to PDF function, you can generate this print preview. And then when you hit print, you'll select your PDF printer here, and for me it's Adobe PDF. And then you can hit OK, and it's going to print out a print to PDF copy. But I want to show you what happens to it. let's call it OHF. Oops, looks like my Adobe is signed out right now. But anyhow, that would have generated an Adobe PDF for me. There's several tools that'll do this. There's Print to PDF, there's Win to PDF. If you guys need a list of a couple of them, there's PDF 995. Just shoot us an email over at support. We can tell you what a couple of different ones are. But I will tell you that most importantly, when you want to print this to PDF, oh, there we go. It finally got created down at the bottom here. When you want to print this to PDF and you select your printer, just make sure that when you go into the properties of the print job that you select, God, get rid of this thing, Jesus. All right. You have to excuse me for a moment. I know this is taking a minute, guys, but I want to show you something pretty important for when you do this. If you're going to select a PDF printer here, make sure and hit Properties. And then for the size, don't choose letter. You actually want to choose this 7.5 by 10 size. Otherwise, you'll get this strange blue line down the right side of your presentation. And that comes up because the background of the Edge presentations is actually that blue color, so it's shining through the back. But if you select the slide here, a 7.5 by 10, it may be called different things on your system. It'll save it in the perfect size, and you won't have that blue line. Okay, so let's get out of there. See what kind of other questions we have real quick here. And Doreen's question, how do I create an open house flyer? We just went through that for this entire call. I would urge you to watch the recording. And I did record this call. I just checked. So what I would tell you is when you go over to our Mortgage Coach site, and you can actually get there by just clicking the Mortgage Coach logo, and hover your mouse over Community, and then go to Coaching Call Archive. You can see that we actually log every single one of these calls. So Thursday training calls, there's a seller buy down, how to explain it. You can see we went over MI strategies a couple weeks ago. And today's call will be posted here in the December area. So you'll be able to watch a full review of how this open house flyer was created by just coming in here and clicking the link. I'll have that up by the end of the day for you. Okay. William's question, if I have one property flyer and I want to do another, how can I use the first one for the second property without starting over? And how can I save by property if I have multiple for one broker? So what you would do is, there's two ways to do this. If you're already in the presentation, you can come over to the analysis screen, and there's a copy analysis button. This copies the entire thing. And you can choose to do this under the same current partner, or you can make it a new partner if it was a totally different one. When you choose current partner, it's going to automatically bring in the partner contact information for you. So if I hit OK here, you can see it still has my Amy Realtor information. All I've got to do is now add a new friendly name for it. So I'll put my new friendly name of that. And the reason I'll do that is because when I go back into my home screen, if I want to find all presentations for this person, I'm going to go into the View All in my Partners section. And you can see when you hit the arrow here, it shows your friendly names up here. So I can differentiate what these are by the street addresses. So I can have multiples under the same realtor. Now, had I chosen to make it a new partner rather than under the same realtor, it would have created a brand new record for me and allowed me to name that one. All right. Steve's question, if you want to integrate some of the Steve Harney slides into an Edge video, can you do that, or would you have to do a separate video? Do you have other video capabilities through Mortgage Coach? So Steve, great question. The only video capability you have is through the browser. And the reason we do that is so you don't have to install extra video components. You know, most of the larger banks won't let you install anything at all. So we had to make sure that everything was portable through the browser for you. Now what that means is that the only way to record video is to use the Flash video tool. It's already built into Adobe Flash. So when you create your videos inside Edge, it's only going to capture what comes through your webcam. So the image that comes through your webcam and the audio that comes through your webcam. If you needed to do some type of a screen capture type of video, you'd need an additional tool. Now what we use here when we do our training videos is we use Camtasia. It's a bit pricey, but it's well worth it. Allows you to do full screen capture recording, allows you to do full editing, and you can take that hard copy and then put that somewhere like YouTube like we do, or even to your own website if you need it. Okay, so Oliver is reminding me that we need to do a total cost, so we're going to do that in just a moment here. Doreen's question real quick, how do I get all of my client presentations to show up on my iPhone Edge app? What you would need to do is you can actually type them into the address bar on your Edge app, or if you send them to yourself in an email, that's probably the easiest way to do it. They're not all just going to be in your app, so they open on demand. So for instance, if you generated an Edge link and put it in an email, emailed it to yourself, and then picked up that email on the phone, you could then click on the Edge link in your email, and it'll open that particular presentation in the app. Now, if you do that, it's actually going to store a history of the past presentations you've viewed. So I think the history will show you up to about 10 presentations at any given time. So you probably want to send yourself the most recent links, click on them, so that if you were to go out to, say, a realtor presentation or something like that, and you wanted to be able to display your app for them, all you would have to do is go into your history log in the app and pull up the specific report that was in question for them. Okay, so Julie's question, when I go to print or save the presentation, it doesn't fit on the page and changes to a portrait orientation. It cuts off the fourth option. So what's happening, Julie, is the open house and seller buy-down presentations, they are portrait. They're not going to save as landscape. They're not supposed to be. But if you're losing a fourth product, it's because your product names are too long. If here, let me show you what this will look like. If I went in here and made this one a bit longer, and we'll make the other one just a tad longer as well. All right. Now once these names get updated here, and we'll see this update in just a moment, once the names get updated, I'll do a print copy for you so you can see what it looks like, but that's going to push this completely out of view. Actually, let me just go manually update it. Okay, so you can see I've got those longer product names there. Now, if I had 4 products, this is going to become even more evident, but even with 3 products, I'm going to find that part of these are getting pushed out of view. And you can see I've actually lost my 3rd product because my product names are too long up here. So best results, keep your product names under 12 characters and you will not lose any products on here. All right, so Steve's question, are you talking about the breakdown on the 2 pages 2 of the TCA is supposed to show up in the video? Steve, I have no idea what you're asking. I'm sorry, it's not making sense to me. If you would, can you clarify your question there? I'm really not sure what you're saying. Okay, so let's get into a total cost analysis here. So I'm going to do a brand new client, and we'll just call this one new client. And then also make sure to always give it a friendly name so that you know what this presentation is. So for instance, this is refi for second home. Now the goals section, this is kind of important. The only goal that has any logic tied to it is this purchase goal. When you select the purchase goal, it's going to eliminate the current mortgage from the assumptions area. So it won't ask you for that. But in this case, we're doing a refi, so I'm going to select any of the other goals. So let's say tap into my equity or other, doesn't really matter there. Now there's only one field that's in red here, and that's current property value. But I would tell you for refinances, you want all of these filled in if possible. Now, current property value, let's say it's $250. But the original appraised value when they took this loan out was only $200. Now the reason this is important is this is what your LTV cutoffs are going to be based on for your MI. They'll be based on the original appraised value. So if you don't put that in and you have, obviously it's going to look like your current mortgage should be out of MI, but it's not. The reason is it's going off the new property value, and you need it to go off the original appraised value. So make sure to enter this field anytime you're dealing with MI on a current mortgage. Now payoff amount field, this is in Edge, it'll automatically use the current loan balance as the payoff unless you use this field. So for instance, if your current loan balance is obviously going to be a little bit different from what the payoff's going to be. If this loan's going to close in 30 days, they might have made another payment. So you can put the actual payoff amount, if you know it, right here. That will be factored in when you're talking cash to close. I'm going to leave it out just so I can show you what Edge does automatically. So we're going to enter our first payment date for this loan, and it doesn't have to be dead on. I mean, if the client has told you they took it out a couple of years ago, I just go 2 years back and find the first payment date that's kind of close here. Now, very important, the original loan amount, this has got to be right. If you don't have this right, the payment that's going to be generated is going to be wrong. So, unless you're dealing with an IO, of course. But in this case, let's say that it was originally 180, and they got this one at 5% on a 30-year term. Now, when you're tabbing through, Edge is automatically going to find the remaining balance for you based on the standard amortization. Now, if your client has made additional principal payments, you can feel free to overwrite this. So instead of 174, let's say in the last 2 years they made about $4,000 worth of extra principal payments. They're now down at 170. When you do that, that'll stick. That's going to be used as your payoff unless you use that total payoff field that I showed you in the previous screen. Now, you notice by doing this, Edge has generated a P&I payment for me. So this is a great way to check on your work. If you don't know what their original loan amount is, this is how you find out. If you happen to know their payment, but you don't know the original loan amount, all you know is their rate and their remaining balance, you can kind of back into it. So if my borrower had told me that their P&I payment was exactly $1,000, I know that I've got to raise this original loan amount until I get this P&I payment to show $1,000. So I would start kind of hitting and missing at it and see if I can find it. So pretty close there. It's probably going to be somewhere around 189 maybe. So you can see where I'm going with this. Eventually I'm going to narrow it down to where I get it spot on. And then once I've got it dialed in to where I'm happy with it, then all I need to do is overwrite the remaining balance with whatever the client has told me their remaining balance is. So now I will have had the correct P&I payment and I'll have the correct balance, and I can move forward. We'll just pop in their monthly escrows. If you do know these already, you can put in dollar amounts. Feel free to. In this case, I just don't have specific dollar amounts to use. And then if they originally had MI, which in this case they probably did, we'd want to enter that. Now, if it was an FHA loan, you'd want to check this Calc MI on balance, but since this one, I'm assuming it's not an FHA loan, I'm not going to check that box. Now, affordability section, this is all great material to collect. If you do have this data available, it's definitely very valuable to collect it. If you don't, though, don't worry about it. It's not in red. It's not a requirement. You can skip past this if you need to. So now we get into the products. Now, you can see that current LTV based on today's value, 72%. So if I didn't have that original appraised value entered in there, it wouldn't be applying my MI. But because I use that, it is applying my MI to the payment. So now new products. Let's show a couple of options. Let's show a rate and term refi. And the easiest way to do this is just toggle refi equals yes. It automatically pulls in the remaining balance from the assumptions area as your new base loan amount. Then you're going to put in your rate and the new term. Then go ahead and apply a closing cost template. Let's see if I've got a refi one in here. Yeah, there we go. You're going to modify anything that you needed to. In this case, my loan origination is a bit too high. And then apply it to the loan. Now, last step is, of course, doing your hazard and taxes. And you notice, as Shebel pointed out earlier, I'm having to redo this data entry here. But the reason is because I didn't use the copy function. So if I add another product here, since I've already got it listed here in the assumptions, I can copy from the current mortgage. So not only that rate and term refi, but I can copy the current one. And once you do that, all you have to do is toggle it over to yes, it is a refi. And when you go through these screens, you'll notice that in the monthly escrows, it's already there for you, so you don't have to double do your data entry. So for this one, I'm going to show a cash out. Now, in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase my base loan amount by the amount of the cash out desired. So if right now it's 180, I'm going to do it at 200. And we'll put in my rate that I can get them right now. And you can see that I'm right at the 80% mark, so I'm not going to need MI on this one. But I'll go ahead and pop in my closing cost template here. Oops. And here's what I was talking about earlier, Shebel. I copied this from the existing product, so it automatically brought this over for me. One thing I don't need is going to be MI, so I'm going to take that off of there. And now I've got a couple of different options. I've got a $20,000 cash out, and I've got a rate and term refi. Now, one of the things that I'm probably going to want to do, because my cash to close is going to be a little bit high on this rate and term refi, because it's basically all my closing costs. And on a rate and term, if we have the room under the LTV, we probably want to finance in those costs. So I think I'm going to go back into my rate and term refi and finance in those costs. And to do that, I'm going to go into my closing cost detail. Oh, good. I've already got them financed in, actually. So that was part of my refi template that I had those automatically ticked, so I don't have to worry about those. That's going to add them on top of the loan amount. So this rate and term refi is going to be a zero cash to close. All right, so last part here is we've got to determine what we're going to do with this savings that we're showing them. We've got a $220 savings on the rate and term refi. The $20,000 cash out, we're still saving them monthly money, so we need to make sure and put this somewhere. Now, if we want to, we can put it straight back into the mortgages and have it pay off the mortgage a little bit early, or we can actually put it into a new investment account or the current savings account. To do that, we hit Adjust Reinvestment Strategy. And you can see it shows you the savings, so you can earmark them for whatever you need to here. So if I wanted to put these straight back into the principal every month, I would put my $219 right here. Once you tab off the field, you can see what it does. It actually shortened my freedom point now to 20.5 years. And my current mortgage, actually, it has mortgage insurance for the next 83 months. So I'm going to be, that's a good metric to show your borrowers. Your MI is not going to drop off unless you refi out of this. Now the $20,000 cash out, it's only saving $121, but I can put that in here as well. And now it shaves my payoff point to 24.3 years. Now additionally, if you don't want to put it in the principal reduction, and you want to put it straight back into, say, their current savings account, you would have need to fill out the savings account area back in the affordability section so that it knows what rate to use. But if you don't want to use this part, you can actually use the investment part for the exact same thing. So let's say that their current savings account is offering them a 0.25% rate of return. And you're going to take the monthly amount that you're saving them and just put it back into that account every month. So $219 there and $121 there. And you can see at the 15-year period, that's got a pretty significant amount in it. So at 15 years, we will have made them $40,000 just by putting the monthly cost savings back into their bank account. So pretty staggering number there. All right, let's see what other questions we have. Okay, sorry, I'm just going through some of the older questions here. William's question, working on a client refi cash out, customer wants to add money to the existing and would like to show edge comparing of existing to new. Can you walk through one of those? So, okay, I see what you're asking, William. So if he wanted to keep his existing one, and I assume you're asking, when you're saying add money to the existing, you're talking about doing a principal reduction on the current mortgage. What you would do is, here in the reinvestment strategy, you would just plug in the amount that you would want to use there. So for instance, if he's got $100 that's going into that every month, you can see that it does shorten the freedom point on the current mortgage, so you can use it just like you do for the new mortgages. Now just remember that this should factor into your totals as well. So and oh good, you said I already answered the question on the cash out. Thank you, excellent. But just for those of you who want to know how can you show it if a client has been making additional principal payments on their current mortgage, you can assign it right here. So this would assume that they would continue making additional principal payments on it. But remember that you have this $218 savings plus this extra $100. So in this case, if they were making an additional $100 right now, I'd want to make this number $319 instead of $219. All right, and it looks like Steve gave me a little clarification on the previous question. He says, when I do the Edge video and show and discuss the detail on page 2 of a TCA, it doesn't show page 2 on my final Edge video. So borrower hears my conversation, but it's not seeing my numbers. Thanks, Steve. That does clarify it for me. So the answer to this whole thing is Edge is not a screen capture recorder. They're not going to see what your mouse is doing while you're recording. They're not going to see what your screen is doing while you're recording. all they're getting is the video that comes through your webcam. So when you do an Edge presentation, one of the things you can do is you can highlight and such, and whatever state you leave that presentation in is what state your client is going to see it. So for instance, if I was to go and preview this report real quick, so if I was to preview this report and I left one of the more info sections popped out, and say I wanted to highlight a couple of things, like for instance, I want to highlight this this investment payment that I have for each one of these. Now, if I'm recording my video while I'm doing this, my video is not capturing the fact that I'm moving my mouse around and I'm highlighting. What it is capturing is just what comes through the webcam, and that's going to play on top of this live presentation. Now, what that means is that if I was to close this presentation down right now, and I'll do that, I'll close out of the presentation. Now remember, I've got there's more details popped up, and I've got some highlights on there. If I close out of this presentation and I was to send my borrower this link, when my borrower opens the presentation, he's going to see it in exactly the same state I left it in. So I'm going to paste that link in there so you can see it. And when this opens up, it's going to open up with that more info already popped out, and it's going to have my highlights going. Now, if you've got a video on it, the video will actually play behind the more info, so they won't see the video until they were to close out of this details screen. But it's actually kind of effective, because if you're walking them through this part first, for instance, it's a great tool because they're not detracted by having to focus on the video. They can just kind of hear it going on while they're watching this part of the presentation. But during your video, you want to tell them to close this out. You know, once you're done discussing that, you want to direct their attention to other things. Say, for instance, you tell your client to click on the more info section on the top left, and then select the closing costs so you can see the fee detail. So you got to kind of instruct them on navigating this. Now, if you have them on this presentation and on the phone with you, and you go into your presentation in preview mode and pop this out, it's going to pop out for them in real time. So they'll see what you're doing. But if you're not able to sync up, so you're both looking at it at the same time, just make sure you leave it in a state that you want your client to see it. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more on that, Steve. If you wanted to be able to do screen capture recording, and I mentioned this early in the call, and I don't think a lot of people were on, if you wanted to be able to do screen capture recording, you need a tool like maybe Camtasia. If you have Jing works as well. Jing is part of Camtasia now, or part of Snagit, so I'm not sure how they're selling it, but I know that you can purchase it. It is a screen capture recorder that allows you to do, I want to say, up to 5 minutes of video, and then it allows you to post that up to their screen archive so that you can send a link to your client. But all that said, I think the best option obviously is if you do have a tool like that and you want to produce those kind of videos, it's going to be a little bit more legwork for you, but it's worth it if you wanted to make yourself strictly about, you know, running through the presentation without having to be there. But I would tell you that your best bet is to get the client live on the phone and run them through the presentation. It's definitely going to be the most effective way to show them. All right, so we're about 5 minutes over, so I'm going to make sure and let you guys go so you can get back to what you need to do. If you have additional questions, please send them to support@mortgagecoach.com. We're always happy to help. Have a great day, everybody.